All right, get ready to dive deep into prostheses and orthoses.
Two topics that I'm sure you'll be tested on in your postgraduate exams.
And to help us navigate these complex topics, we'll be drawing on the Ortho Made Simple notes.
Yeah, created by Dr. Mok Ying Ren, a sports surgeon who aced his FRCS exams back in 2022.
So you know these notes are going to be good.
You can find them on mokyingren.sg.
Now let's imagine you're in that exam room, face to face with a patient who's had an amputation.
What's the first thing that pops into your mind when you think about getting them a prosthesis?
I'd probably jump straight to thinking about the type of prosthesis they'll need.
Well, hold on a second, because before we even think about the device itself,
Okay.
we need to assess the residual limb, the foundation of the whole process.
Right, so you're saying it's not just about slapping on a prosthesis, you need to make sure the limb itself is ready.
Exactly. A well-healed limb is crucial for a successful prosthetic fitting.
So what makes for an ideal below-knee amputation stump?
For a BKA stump, you want it to be either cylindrical or conical in shape, with good soft tissue coverage. Mobile skin, and importantly, sensate skin.
Sensate skin, why is that so important?
Well, you see, split skin grafts can be problematic because they lack that normal skin sensitivity.
Ah, so you're thinking about long-term comfort and function right from the get-go.
Absolutely, and it all starts in the operating room.
Okay, how so?
Well, the way the surgeon handles the nerves, shapes the bones, and manages the muscles, all that can have a huge impact on the final outcome.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on those surgical considerations?
Sure, for instance, with the nerves, you have to handle them very carefully to avoid those painful neuromas.
And aromas, remind me what those are again.
They're basically tangled nerve endings that can cause a lot of discomfort for the patient,
Right, and how do you prevent those?
often by cutting the nerves cleanly under tension.
Got it. So what about the bones?
The bone ends need to be smooth and rounded to prevent any pressure points.
Makes sense. And what about the muscles? How do you manage those during the amputation?
For the muscles, there are two main techniques: myoplasty and myodesis.
Okay, so what's the difference between those two?
In myoplasty, you suture the muscles to the periosteum, which is that fibrous membrane covering the bone.
Right.
This helps to create a dynamic muscle flap, to cushion the bone end and improve the shape of the stump.
So it's like creating a protective layer over the bone.
Exactly. And then there's myodesis, where the muscle is attached directly to the bone.
I see. So which technique is better?
Well, it depends. Myodesis provides a more secure attachment, but it can limit the range of motion.
Oh, I see.
So the choice really depends on factors like the level of amputation and how active the patient is.
So it sounds like there's a real art to creating that ideal below-knee amputation stump.
There really is.
Okay, so let's say we have a patient with a well-healed stump. How do we go about choosing the right prosthesis for them?
Well, that's where understanding the different components of a prosthesis comes into play.
Okay.
A prosthesis isn't just one piece, it's a whole system. It has four key components: the socket, the suspension system, the link, and the terminal device.
And each of those plays a crucial role in how the prosthesis works and feels for the patient.
Exactly.
So let's break those down, starting with the socket. What's that all about?
The socket, well, it's the interface between the body and the prosthesis. It's where the load transfer happens.
Load transfer meaning?
It's how the weight and forces from the body get transmitted to the ground through the prosthesis.
Okay.
So the socket has to fit perfectly, distributing pressure evenly to avoid discomfort and skin breakdown.
So I imagine a good fit is crucial.
Oh, absolutely. Think of it like the foundation of a house.
Yeah, okay.
If it's not solid, the whole structure is compromised.
Right, that makes sense. So what about the suspension system? How does the prosthesis actually stay on?
Well, the suspension system does just that. It keeps the prosthesis securely attached to the limb.
I see. And are there different types of suspension systems?
Oh, yeah, definitely. From simple straps and belts to more sophisticated suction systems.
And I'm guessing the choice depends on the patient's individual needs.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've got the socket and the suspension. What about the link? You mentioned that was a key component as well.
The link, right. Well, it connects the socket to the terminal device. It can be as simple as a rigid pylon, or it can be more complex, with mechanisms for shock absorption or energy storage.
So it's like the bridge between the body and the foot, so to speak.
Exactly. It transmits forces back and forth.
Okay, that makes sense. And finally, we have the terminal device, which I'm guessing is the part that actually interacts with the environment.
Exactly. The terminal device replicates the function of the missing body part.
So for a below-knee amputation, that would be the foot, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine there are all sorts of different feet out there, each with its own pros and cons.
Oh, absolutely. There's been a real evolution of prosthetic feet over the years.
Like what?
Well, for example, you might come across the SACH foot.
Sacie's foot, what's that?
It stands for Solid Ankle Cushioned Heel. It's a non-articulating foot, meaning it doesn't have a movable ankle joint.
I see.
It's simple, durable, and affordable.
So it gets the job done.
But it doesn't really offer much energy return or dynamic response.
So what's the alternative if someone needs a more dynamic foot?
In that case, there's the dynamic response foot.
Okay, what's that like?
It has a flexible keel, almost like a spring, that stores energy during walking and then releases it to propel the user forward.
Oh, interesting.
It makes walking feel much more natural and efficient, especially for people who are really active.
Wow, so it's like the difference between a regular shoe and a high-performance running shoe.
Exactly.
The technology behind these devices is pretty impressive.
It really is.
But even with the best prosthesis, there can still be challenges, right?
Of course, using a prosthesis can lead to complications, both physical and psychological.
Like what?
Well, things like skin breakdown, pain, infections, even bone spurs can occur.
Right.
And then there's the psychological adjustment to losing a limb, which can be very difficult.
Absolutely. It's not just about the physical device. It's about the whole person.
Yeah.
Now, earlier you mentioned load transfer. Can you explain that a bit more? How does the force of the body actually get transmitted through the prosthesis?
Sure. In a BKA prosthesis, load transfer mainly happens through the socket,
Okay.
using the total contact method.
Total contact method meaning?
Well, it means the entire surface of the residual limb is in contact with the socket.
Oh,
So the force is distributed evenly.
that sounds much more comfortable.
It is, and it minimizes the risk of pressure points.
So were there other methods used before this?
Yeah, older designs used direct load transfer.
How's that different?
Well, the pressure was focused on specific areas like the patellar tendon or the end of the tibia,
Oh, I see.
but that could lead to discomfort and skin problems, so total contact is preferred now.
It's amazing how much thought goes into the design and fitting of these prostheses.
It really is a specialty in itself.
And it's constantly evolving with new technologies and designs.
All the time.
So it's important to stay up to date.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been incredibly informative. We've covered a lot of ground here, all based on the Ortho Made Simple notes.
Which you can find on mokyingren.sg.
It's a fantastic resource, especially if you're preparing for those postgraduate orthopedic exams. And we'll be back to explore the world of orthosis.
After a short break.
Stay tuned.
Right.
And we're back, ready to tackle the fascinating world of orthosis.
Yeah, building on what we learned about prostheses.
All based on those awesome Ortho Made Simple notes you can find at mokyingren.sg.
So let's jump right in. Can you give us a quick definition of an orthosis?
Sure, it's like a support system for the body, right?
Exactly. You can think of it as an external device applied to a limb or the spine.
To help improve function.
Yeah, either by supporting weakened muscles or correcting deformities.
So it's basically giving the body a little extra help.
Precisely.
Now, I know there are tons of different types of orthosis.
Oh, yeah, a whole bunch.
So how do we even begin to categorize them?
One way is to think about them in two main categories.
Okay.
Corrective and accommodative.
Okay, so what's the difference?
A corrective orthosis aims to actually change the alignment or shape of a body part.
So it's trying to fix something.
Yeah, it's typically rigid and limits motion to guide the body into a better position.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, like the Boston brace used for treating scoliosis.
Ah, yeah, I've heard of that one.
It applies pressure to the spine to gradually correct the curvature.
So it's like gently nudging the spine back into place.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about accommodative orthoses? How do they work?
Accommodative orthoses are more about working with the body as it is, not trying to change it.
Okay.
They provide support and comfort, accommodating existing deformities.
So they're more about cushioning and protecting rather than actively correcting.
Right. Think of like a soft insole for someone with flat feet.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's not trying to reshape the foot, but it supports the arch and helps distribute pressure better.
So one is about fixing, the other is about supporting.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it's not always one or the other. Are there orthoses that can be both corrective and accommodative?
You're right. The lines can blur sometimes.
Okay.
Take a TLSO, for example, a thoracolumboSacral orthosis.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, but it's a good example because it can provide support for spinal fractures, which is accommodative.
Right.
But it can also be designed to help correct scoliosis, which is corrective.
So it can do both, depending on the design.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Now, what about the materials used for orthosis? What are the most common options?
Well, plastics are the main material for orthoses.
Okay.
But even within plastics, we have two main types, thermosetting and thermoforming plastics.
Okay, can you explain the difference between those two?
Sure, so thermosetting plastics, they're like a one-time deal.
Okay,
You heat them up to mold them,
right.
and once they cool down, they harden permanently.
Got it.
So they're durable, but not very adjustable.
So they're good for situations where you need a rigid, long-lasting orthosis.
Exactly.
What about thermoforming plastics?
Thermoforming plastics, they're more adaptable.
Okay.
You can reheat them multiple times to make adjustments.
Ah, so they're more like the chameleons of the orthotic world.
That's a good way to put it.
So they're ideal for situations where you might need to fine-tune the fit, or if the patient's condition changes.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got the materials down, but how do these orthoses actually work? Is there some sort of underlying principle?
Yes, most orthoses work based on what's called the three-point pressure system.
Three-point pressure system.
Yeah, it's a simple concept, but very effective.
Okay, break it down for me.
Imagine you're trying to stabilize something that's wobbly.
Okay.
You would apply pressure at 3 points to keep it from moving,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, that's basically how most orthoses work.
I see.
They apply a primary force at the point where they want to correct or support,
Okay.
and then two counter forces at opposite points to create a stable system.
So it's like a tripod, using those 3 points of contact to create stability.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever. But I'm guessing not every orthosis follows this rule.
You're right, there are exceptions.
Like what?
For example, the Milwaukee brace for scoliosis uses a 4-point pressure system.
Interesting. So it's not always a one-size-fits-all approach?
Nope.
Now, can we talk about some specific types of orthoses? You know, the ones we're likely to see in practice or on those exams?
Sure, let's start by comparing two that often confuse people.
Yeah.
The posterior leaf spring orthosis and the solid AFO, or ankle foot orthosis.
Okay, I'm ready for the challenge. What's the main difference between those two?
The key difference is in the trim line, which is that edge of the orthosis around the ankle.
Okay.
In a posterior leaf spring orthosis, the trim line is behind the malleolus.
Malleolus, that's the bony bump on the outside of the ankle, right?
Right.
Okay.
This allows for some flexibility, letting the foot move up and down a bit.
So it's like a springy support for the foot?
Yeah, now with the solid AFO, the trim line is in front of the malleolus.
I see. And what does that do?
That makes the AFO much more rigid, restricting ankle movement.
So one is flexible, the other is rigid.
Exactly.
And I'm assuming you would choose one over the other depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. If you need to control spasticity or provide maximum stability, a solid AFO is the way to go.
Right.
But if you want to allow some plantar flexion, for example, a hinged AFO might be better.
Hinged AFO.
Yeah, it's a solid AFO with a hinge at the ankle.
So it allows for controlled movement.
Right.
That makes sense. Okay, can we move on to some specific orthoses that are likely to come up on exams?
Definitely. Let's start with the club foot brace.
Okay, what's that like?
Imagine open toe, high top, straight last shoes at shoulder width, attached to a bar.
Okay, that's a very specific picture.
It's a classic corrective orthosis.
And what does it do?
It gently guides that little foot into a more corrected position.
Got it. So it's all about encouraging proper alignment.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do we need to know about?
How about the grapho?
Grapho, what's that stand for?
It stands for ground reaction ankle foot orthosis.
Okay, and what's so special about the GRFO?
The GRFO uses biomechanics to improve gait.
Okay.
It's often used for conditions like cerebral palsy, where muscle weakness can cause crouch gait.
So for people who walk with their knees bent,
Yeah, exactly.
how does the GRFO help with that?
Well, it uses something called coupling.
Coupling.
Yeah, it basically means controlling the ankle joint to influence the knee joint.
Interesting.
The GRFO has a rigid shell that prevents too much ankle dorsiflexion.
I see.
And this keeps the ground reaction force in front of the knee, which helps to extend the knee even when the muscles are weak.
So it's like outsmarting the weakness by using the forces involved?
Yeah, you could say that.
And you mentioned cerebral palsy. Is that the only condition where the GRFO is used?
It's common in cerebral palsy, especially for crouch gait. But it's interesting to note that the GR-AFO was actually developed to address the limitations of an earlier AFO.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Saltiel AFO, which was used for polio patients.
Yeah, what was wrong with the salty LEFO?
Well, it had a fixed equinus position, so the foot was always pointed downward.
Ah, I see.
This made it unsuitable for bilateral use and often required walking aids.
So the GRFO was an improvement on that design.
Yeah, it allows for a more natural ankle position, and you can use it bilaterally.
So it's a good example of how innovation builds on existing knowledge.
Definitely.
Okay, what other orthoses should we be familiar with?
How about the UCBL?
UCBL, what does that stand for?
University of California, Berkeley Laboratories.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, but it's a rigid insert that goes inside the shoe
Okay,
to control hindfoot valgus and midfoot pronation.
so it basically stabilizes the foot and prevents it from collapsing inward. And
Exactly.
what's it used for?
Often for things like posterior tibial tendon dysfunction.
Where the tendon that supports the arch of the foot gets weak.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I want to talk about something that's been used in orthopedics for a long time.
Okay.
Plaster of Paris, or POP.
Yes, the classics.
I know it comes up a lot on exams, so let's make
Mhm.
sure we understand it.
Good idea.
So, first of all, what exactly is POP, and why is it called plaster of Paris?
Well, POP is essentially anhydrous calcium sulfate.
Anhydrous calcium sulfate.
Yeah, and the Paris part comes from the fact that large deposits of gypsum, the mineral used to make POP, were found near Paris.
So it's named after the place where it was discovered.
That's right.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But how does it go from a rock to that hard white cast we all know?
The process is quite fascinating, actually.
Right.
Gypsum is heated up to a very high temperature,
Okay.
which drives out the water molecules and creates anhydrous calcium sulfate.
Okay.
Then it's ground into a fine powder and mixed with gauze.
And what does the gauze do?
The gauze acts as reinforcement, giving the POP strength.
Okay.
Because gypsum on its own is actually brittle and weak. But when you combine it with gauze, you create a composite material with anisotropic strength.
Anisotropic strength, meaning?
Meaning it's stronger in one direction than the other.
So it's like reinforcing concrete with rebar. It's not just the material itself, but how it's structured.
That's a great analogy.
So when you add water to this mixture, what happens?
When water is added, a chemical reaction is triggered.
Okay.
The anhydrous calcium sulfate rehydrates and hardens, and this releases heat.
So it's like a reversible chemical reaction.
Yeah, you take the water out, then add it back in to make it harden.
That's pretty cool. Now, I know there are ways to make POP harden faster. Any tips?
Sure, if you need it to set quickly, you can use warmer water, thinner plaster, or just use less water.
Okay, good to know.
Mm-hmm.
But POP isn't the only casting material anymore, right? We have fiberglass casts, too.
Yeah, fiberglass is definitely gaining popularity.
So how do they compare?
Well, fiberglass is lighter, stronger, more water-resistant, and generally more durable than POP.
Okay, sounds good.
But it's also more expensive and not as easy to mold.
I see. And importantly, it's more radiolucent.
Meaning?
X-rays can pass through it more easily.
So if you need to take follow-up X-rays, fiberglass is the better choice.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up our cast conversation, I want to mention a potential risk: heat injury.
Right, that's important.
Because even though casts are used for cooling and immobilization, they can actually trap heat.
And potentially cause burns if not applied carefully.
So what should we watch out for?
Well, the number of layers, ventilation, and the location of the cast all play a role.
Okay.
Hip spica casts, which cover the hip and thigh, are the riskiest
Why is that?
because they're very thick and cover a large area, so there's limited ventilation.
So it's important to be mindful of that heat buildup.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been another fantastic deep dive into the world of orthoses.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, and remember, all of this is based on those Ortho-made simple notes,
Which are available on mokyingren.sg.
They're a great resource for anyone studying for their orthopedic exams. Welcome back one last time for our deep dive into prosthetics and orthotics,
Yeah, we've covered so much ground already.
all drawn from those excellent Ortho-made simple notes from mokyingren.sg.
A must-have resource if you're gearing up for those orthopedic exams.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap things up, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with?
Well, I really hope they've grasped those core principles behind these devices.
Okay.
We've talked about load transfer, materials, the biomechanics involved,
Right?
all the building blocks of prosthetics and orthotics.
Yeah, it's not just about memorizing facts.
Nope.
It's about truly understanding how these devices work
Right, and how they interact with the body.
and ultimately how they can change a patient's life.
Exactly, and that brings me to another crucial point.
Okay.
We can't forget the human element in all of this.
Right. These devices are more than just pieces of metal and plastic.
Exactly. They represent a return to function, independence, and quality of life for people who have lost limbs or have disabilities.
It's so easy to get caught up in those technical details.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's all about the patient.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important for us as orthopedic surgeons to consider not just the physical challenges, but the mental and social aspects as well.
That's a really important point. Things like phantom limb pain,
Yeah.
body image issues, adjusting to a new way of life.
Yeah, all things we need to be sensitive to.
Absolutely. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge.
Okay.
As you continue studying and preparing for your exams, don't just passively absorb information.
Okay.
Really take a moment to think about what resonated with you from this deep dive.
Yeah.
What questions did it spark for you? What clinical scenarios can you imagine where this knowledge would be crucial?
It's all about connecting the dots, making it real.
Exactly. And remember, those Ortho Made Simple notes on mokyingren.sg are there to guide you every step of the way.
An invaluable resource.
Best of luck on those exams, everyone, and keep pushing those boundaries of orthopedic knowledge.
Keep learning.